As farmers protested in front of the Polish parliament today, the ruling coalition was in the process of rejecting a resolution that was written by the farmers themselves. The government declares its willingness to hold talks and assures the farmers that they are understood, but their actions suggest otherwise. To make matters worse, Prime Minister Donald Tusk was not even present in the same chamber today. On Tuesday, Law and Justice submitted a draft resolution to the same Speaker's office regarding the situation of Polish farmers. Speaker Szymon Hołownia referred it for a reading in the committee appointed to deal with the matter. Law and Justice filed a motion today to join the session and place the resolution on the agenda. Prepared by the farmers themselves, who are telling us today that they asked that someone from the Ministry of Agriculture bring the resolution here. But neither Kołodziejczak nor Krajewski dared to do it. 190 deputies of Law and Justice, Confederation and Kukiz 15 voted in favour of the resolution, in favour of the so-called Lex Rolnik, while 236 deputies of the parties forming the government coalition voted against. Both Agriculture Minister Czesław Siekierski and Deputy Ministers Michał Kołodziejczak and Stefan Krajewski voted against. The document called on the government to meet the strikers' two most important demands. 1. The introduction of a total embargo on agri-food products that do not meet EU production standards from Ukraine as well as other non-European Union countries. 2. To oppose the European Union's climate policy, which will lead to the destruction of Polish and European agriculture. So, once again, as farmers rallied in front of Prime Minister Donald Tusk's office, the ruling coalition rejected the resolution written by the farmers themselves. This is symbolic. Let's be honest, it's not just about Ukraine. It's mostly about imports from the east. From what we hear, most of the goods are coming from Russia, and they are probably the ones who care most about the kinds of excesses happening here. Farmers are protesting the uncontrolled influx of agri-food products from the east. Their cereals have flooded the European market, hitting the markets of countries bordering Ukraine, namely Poland, the hardest. As a result, they have led to a drastic undercutting of prices. This ton of wheat, in order to be profitable to produce, should cost 1,300 zlotys. Meanwhile, it sells for 600. The farmer no longer has anything to cultivate the land for. Well, because what is he going to sow? Rapeseed? Wheat goes for a very low price. Well, what's he going to live on? Well, it simply won't pay to go into the fields. More and more trade unions and social groups are joining the protests. The demonstration in the centre of Warsaw today was attended by farmers, the labour union Solidarity, foresters, beekeepers, builders and hunters. Prime Minister Donald Tusk invited farmers to talks on Saturday. He didn't meet them today, and as we mentioned before, he wasn't even present at the same. Minister Dorożała, who is in charge of agriculture talks, more often with NGOs, colleagues whom we call eco-terrorists, than he does with us. Farmers are demanding the withdrawal of the Green Deal project. Among the tenets of the policy is to force 4% of the land to be kept fallow. But that's just for starters. The target is to increase this to 10%. And that means taking away 1,800,000 hectares of land from farmers in Poland. In turn, under the EU's Common Agricultural Policy, 25% of agricultural land is to be set aside for organic farming as early as 2030. This will cost huge amounts of money. Farmers are up against the wall. As far as Poland is concerned, that's a cost of 220 billion in additional outlays per year and for several decades. Protesters enjoy unprecedented support. According to polls, 78% of Poles overwhelmingly support the farmers' protests. As many as 68% of the residents in large cities such as Warsaw, Łódź and Kraków support the farmers' demands. Even Legia Football Club fans made a special banner in a gesture of support. Because this Green Order will come after them and others. If we look today at this ban by President Trzaskowski on tractors entering Warsaw, we see how the authorities approach these issues. The Green Deal policy, for example, is defended by Poland 2050 leader Szymon Hołownia, who works with the Polish People's Party as part of the Third Way. We will defend the Green Deal. Farmers are one of the last significant professional groups left that have some independence and private ownership. EU policy seeks to destroy agriculture as we know it and instead offers us goods produced, for example, in South America or Ukraine. Agriculture there is mostly owned by large multinational holding companies. Limiting the group of farmers in the dimension of their civic function, a specific group of people who are independent from the bosses, is also part of this political puzzle. Farmers and all protesting labour groups indicate that they will not withdraw strike action until the government throws the Green Deal into the trash and regulates the import of goods from the East. Łukasz Muda, Telewizja Republika. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba told EU foreign ministers last week that Ukraine needed 2.5 million artillery shells this year, according to the Financial Times, suggesting a daily requirement of 7,000. But the European Union had sent only 400,000. Ukrainian soldiers fighting near Ukraine's Bakhmut said yesterday that their use of drones is contributing much to their ability to save ammunition. Drones allow them to constantly analyse the battlefield and adjust their fire accordingly. The drones allow us to observe from the sky the exact place of the shell's explosion. Accordingly, we calculate the adjustments more precisely. The tablets allow us to do it very quickly. In such a way, we hit the enemy at maximum efficiency by constantly adjusting fire. This really saves ammunition. The continuing conflict between Ukraine and Russia has highlighted the pivotal role drones play in modern warfare. Ukrainian forces have utilized drones, particularly first-person view models, to target Russian troops and infrastructure more effectively. These drones have been employed to destroy tanks, damage military aircraft, and strike oil refineries and factories within Russian territory. Ukraine aims to acquire 1 million more drones within the next year, with support from Western allies, of course. Despite challenges in acquiring sufficient ammunition, Ukraine views drones as vital tools for maintaining a strategic advantage in the conflict. The Ukrainian army has also benefited from the assistance of private organizations like the Dronarium Academy, which has played a crucial role in training drone pilots, the demand for whom is steadily increasing. Military analysts argue that Ukraine's innovative use of drones has contributed significantly to its ability to resist Russian aggression. The establishment of a dedicated drone-focused branch within the military underscores their importance in Ukraine's defense strategy. Rafael Mariano Grossi, the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, is currently in Russia to address concerns regarding the safety of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in Ukraine, which has been affected by the conflict since Russia's invasion in 2022. The plant, Europe's largest, has faced shutdowns posing the risks of a potential nuclear disaster. Grossi's visit follows his recent trip to Ukraine, where he inspected the plant and held discussions with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. During his visit to Russia, Grossi engaged in discussions with Russian officials, including representatives from Rosatom and the Foreign and Defense Ministries. He emphasized the importance of maintaining dialogue with both sides and expressed concerns about the plant's fragile situation. Discussions in Moscow have focused on technical issues related to the plant's operational status, including the possibility of restarting it and ensuring adequate safety evaluation and external power supply lines. Vladimir opened the meeting with pleasantries and with a remark that Russia is a world leader in nuclear energy. Grossi, on the other hand, responded by underlining the tension that exists around safety at the plant.
I agree with you that these are very important times with challenges, and we will be discussing those with regards to some sensitive issues.
The Zaporizhzhia plant has faced challenges due to power outages, relying on emergency generators and staffing issues. Ukrainian workers who refused Russian citizenship and contracts with Rosatom have been restricted from accessing the plant, leading to a significant reduction in staff. Russian workers and residents from nearby areas, unfamiliar with nuclear plant operations, have replaced them, raising further security concerns. As the 17th of March presidential elections approach in Russia, Yulia Navalnaya, widow of opposition leader Alexei Navalny, called on Russians to join an election day protest at noon to either vote against President Vladimir Putin or spoil their ballots. In a YouTube video, Navalnaya said she had drawn hope from the huge crowds that turned out last week for the funeral of her husband, who died in an Arctic penal colony on the 16th of February, and who since then have submerged his grave in a sea of flowers. She urged people to join the 17th of March action that Navalny, Russia's best-known opposition figure, had called for shortly before he died. His idea was that people could register a protest without any risk of arrest by turning out en masse at the same time on election day in cities across the country. We can still use that so-called election against him, use it to achieve our goals. Alexei himself told us how to do it. We need to use election day to show that we exist and that there are many of us. We are real, we are alive, we exist, and we are against Putin. We need to come to the polling station on the same day and time, noon on the 17th of March. It is up to you to choose what to do next. You can vote for any candidate but Putin. You may spoil the ballot. You can write on it in big letters, Navalny. Since her husband's death, Navalnaya has promised to continue his work and made several high-profile political appearances in the West, including meeting United States President Joe Biden and addressing the Munich Security Conference and the European Parliament. The Kremlin has strongly denied accusations by Navalnaya that Putin had Navalny killed and has declined to comment on the public response to his death and funeral. His death certificate said he died of natural causes, aged 47. Upon his return from Africa, Haitian Prime Minister Ariel Henry could not land in Port-au-Prince because bandits with rifles were waiting for him at the airport. Because of fears for his life, he was forced to land in Puerto Rico instead. The situation in Haiti is dire, and the de facto control of the country has been taken over by gangs of former military and police officers who are threatening to overthrow the government. The already dire situation in Haiti worsened further over the weekend when Prime Minister Henry was in Kenya to sign an agreement on the deployment of foreign troops to stabilize his country. On Sunday, the Haitian government declared a state of emergency after 4,000 prisoners escaped. They are making death threats against the highest officials of our country. Those who reunited with this barbaric group must pay for their actions. Yes, all perpetrators and accomplices must be identified and brought to Haitian justice. We hope that the penalties to be imposed will be announced soon. Since the assassination of President Jovenel Moise in 2021, Haitian gangs have expanded their control over the country. Previously they fought among themselves. Now, however, they have united against the government. Former police officer Jimmy Cherizier, also known as Barbecue, has become their leader. We are fighting to remove Prime Minister Ariel Henry, and then we will start fighting the system to have the kind of country we want, with jobs for all, safe, free education, no social discrimination, where all people can succeed. If Ariel Henry does not step down, there will be genocide in this country, and the international community, especially the United States, will be responsible. The 46-year-old Cherizier, also known as Barbecue, was previously an officer in the Haitian National Police. As a police officer, he is accused by the United Nations of involvement in numerous massacres, including the murder of more than 70 people in 2018, when more than 400 homes in the capital's La Saline neighborhood were set on fire.